Hi everyone, I'm David Fisher, and this is Presidential Chronicles, the series of books and videos on American history as seen through the lives of the presidents of the United States. This episode is from the life of William Henry Harrison, and the focus is Colombia and back. The year is 1828. Harrison is serving as the United States Senator from the state of Ohio, and it's the last year of the John Quincy Adams administration. For the last 4 years, Harrison's friend Henry Clay, the Secretary of State, has been kind of pushing and prodding the president to give an opportunity to Harrison, perhaps in the Foreign Service. And President Adams was kind of getting tired of it. He wrote in his diary at the time, "This person's thirst for lucrative office is absolutely rabid. Vice President, Major General of the Army, Minister to Colombia, for each of these places he has been this very session as hot in pursuit as a hound on the scent of a hare. He is a political adventurer, not without talent, but self-sufficient and vain and indiscreet." Now, John Quincy Adams criticized lots of people in lots of ways in his diary. In this case, he eventually gave in, and he did appoint Harrison to become the Minister of Colombia, and Harrison accepted. Now, Harrison had done a lot of diplomatic work in the past, but it was all with Indian tribes in the American Northwest Territory. This was going to be very different. Colombia was one of the new republics in South America that had broken away from Spain, and it had fought for its independence and had established a constitutional republic under their leader, the dynamic Simon Bolivar. And Bolivar was also called the Liberator. He was the country in terms of leadership. It was under some stormy times at the beginning as they were really trying to balance what should they do from a strong central authority standpoint versus having autonomy and independence in some of the regions to make their own decisions. In fact, they had a constitutional convention that very year in 1828 to try to pass some reforms. It ended up being a complete failure, and Bolivar decided to actually take on temporary dictatorial powers in order to avoid anarchy as the things were getting pretty tense in his country. Well, Harrison's instructions in this regard were very clear from Secretary of State Clay, which said, "During your residence there, you will cautiously abstain from identifying yourself with either of the contending parties. Our policy has long been firmly fixed to avoid all interference in the internal concerns of any country. The president wishes no deviation from it." This could not have been more clear. Well, it was an arduous journey for Harrison. 5 weeks by sea, another 5 weeks by land to get to the mountain capital of Bogota. And he kind of had a poor first impression when he first got there. He wrote to Secretary of State Clay, "The government appears to be a complete military despotism, and that agriculture and commerce appear to be in a most wretched and still declining state." There was another twist. Bolivar at the time, again, worried about where things were going to be going, and he actually thought a switch to a monarchy might be the right answer. And for this, he authorized his government to start having conversations with the British and the French, perhaps one or the other, to put somebody on the throne after Bolivar's tenure and his reign ended. And those conversations were getting started while Harrison was on assignment in Colombia, and he was worried. He was worried on a number of levels, including the fact that the Monroe Doctrine had been issued by the United States just 4 years before, and that doctrine had essentially said a warning to any European country to no longer think about colonizing anywhere in the Americas in North or South. This would be a violation of that. And so again, he was very concerned. And a lot of Harrison's dispatches back to the United States had a lot of insight coming from the rebellious opposition. And this was something that even the Bolivar administration in Colombia was concerned about. They simply thought that Harrison was too close to the opposition. They were very suspicious of him and his motives. Well, while this was happening, Harrison was suddenly recalled. Presidential election had been held in the United States. Andrew Jackson beats Quincy Adams, so Adams is out, Jackson is in. His new Secretary of State is Martin Van Buren, and Van Buren among those advocating strongly for what Jackson would eventually call rotation in office, getting rid of old political appointees and bringing in their own people. And that's exactly what happened to Harrison, who was recalled. He was given permission to stay until his successor would arrive, but in September of 1829, his tenure as the Minister to Colombia was officially over. Now, he did decide to stay in the country to do some local travel, but tensions were still very, very strong at this point between the opposition and the government. There were those ongoing talks with Britain and France, this talk about a dictatorship, a talk about a monarchy, and William Henry Harrison made an odd move. he decided to write a personal letter to Bolivar. It was a provocative letter. It had strong opinions, 2,000 words, a full-throated advocacy of small r republicanism over monarchism. His firm belief, no question, this is how Harrison had believed all the time, but this was, again, a very bold move for someone who was now ostensibly a private citizen. He no longer had any official duties on behalf of the American government. In this lengthy letter, he opened up with some niceties. This was all in the best interest and best intentions coming from Harrison, but he was very direct in his advocacy to Bolivar. One of his statements said, "It is the most difficult thing in the world for me to believe that a people in the possession of their rights as free men would ever be willing to surrender them and submit themselves to the will of a master. They will demand the facts which had induced a people, by no means deficient in intelligence, so soon to abandon the principles for which they had so gallantly fought, and tamely surrendered that liberty which had been obtained at the expense of so much blood." He continued in his advocacy to Bolivar, "Your feelings will be eternally racked by being obliged to make war upon those who have been accustomed to call you their father, and to invoke blessings on your head, and for no cause but their adherence to principles which you yourself had taught them to regard more than their lives." This was all about pushing for the idea of this constitutional republic. Don't give up on that so soon, according to Harrison. Well, this did not go over well at all. Bolivar and his government, they were angered. The impertinence of this foreigner coming in and trying to tell us how to run our country. Who is he to dictate? And in fact, they accused Harrison of fomenting violence within the rebellious ranks, and they told him to get out of the country. They basically said, get out and get out now. Well, Harrison did leave. He got back to the United States, been about a year away in total, but his personal troubles were continuing. He was deep in debt, now unemployed. His sons were in debt. His business ventures were failing. This was not a good time. In fact, his farm couldn't even cover its own cost and the taxes. He was having to sell off some land holdings. This was a very difficult time. Personally, he even decided to actually make a change to shut down his distillery, which was actually still making money, but his son William Jr. turned out to be an alcoholic, and alcohol was ruining his life. And so Harrison said, "I'm going to stand with my son. I'm not going to drink anymore." He swore off alcohol and he shut down his distillery. Things got even worse, though, for the family. And one of his other sons, Symmes, catches typhoid fever. He dies in October of 1830, leaving 6 children that William Henry Harrison and his wife Anna actually bring into their home. The loss of Symmes, Harrison said, was the most severe affliction I have ever experienced. Now, on the bright side, he did welcome a new grandson into the world. In fact, born in his North Bend home. They named him Benjamin, August 20, 1833. This was the first time that the 9th and the 23rd presidents of the United States, William Henry Harrison and Benjamin Harrison, were together with the new baby boy. Well, eventually Harrison got a little bit of fortune going when he picked up a job as the clerk of the Court of Common Pleas in Cincinnati. So he started to pay off some of his debts from this. But soon enough, he was actually going to be back in the spotlight in a very different way with a new election year coming around the corner in 1836. But that is the story for another day. That is William Henry Harrison, Colombia and back, from the life of William Henry Harrison. For more presidential chronicles, check out my books on Amazon.com, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Until next time, I'm David Fisher, and this is Presidential Chronicles.